Hi, today we're going to do a brake job on a 2001 MDX, Acura MDX. And first of all, I want to just say, if you're considering doing a brake job, this is applicable to not only just Acura MDXs from like 2000 to 2005, kind of that same body style, but pretty much any brake job's pretty simple. And save yourself the money. It's usually they'll charge you 80, 90 bucks for a brake job. It costs you 20 bucks for the brake pads, and you can do in like probably half hour. And that's 2 of them. And then to do all 4, you know, they might charge you 150, 200 bucks to do it, and you can do it for like 40 bucks in an hour in 15 minutes. So it's definitely worth your time to do it. So let's get started.
Okay, so here are some of the tools you're going to need to get this job done. First of all, you're going to want to get the jack that just comes with your car. And usually these tools here, the jack, this little bar to spin it up, and then this tool to get your lug nuts off, that all comes with your car. It's usually just in the back, like in the trunk, or in my case it was over here to the side. Just pull it out of there. You can get a nicer jack, but that works fine. Also, you're going to want, like, I have this car kit that just has a bunch of tools that you might use for a car. Pretty much all you need for this is a socket set, but it's nice to have some extra ones in handy. Sometimes you get really long, or you got to torque on things pretty hard, so if you have a breaker bar or a socket set that's pretty long, gets you some more leverage. And of course you're going to want the brakes, the brake pads, and those, I bought mine on eBay. You can also get them on Amazon. Those will usually be 20 bucks or so for a set of like 4, so they're 2 on each wheel. And you can also get them at the local, like AutoZone or one of those stores, you know, auto store, but they'll usually charge you 30 or 40 bucks. These are the nicer ones too. They're ceramics. Those ones don't, the other ones make a lot of black stuff that gets all over your wheels. So if you can for your car, I'd go with the ceramics. And then I have a C-clamp here. You can use a big C-clamp to, you're gonna see later, you gotta compress the brake a little bit so you can get the pads on, the new ones. There are tools you can rent at AutoZone or any of those auto stores for free, but I just use a C-clamp. It's pretty easy. And then I use a head lamp that sometimes it gets dark in there, so it's nice to have some light. And then of course you're also going to want like some grubby clothes because you get pretty dirty in there. Okay, so we're looking at the front passenger wheel. Pretty much all 4 brake pads on all 4 wheels are going to be the same. The front ones are a little bigger on the MDX than the back ones. I imagine that's the case with most front wheel drive cars. So don't worry if your pads come and they're bigger for the front ones. So then you just take the jack and you just put it, you want to make sure it's on this brace, or I mean on the, you know, where it's a solid part of the frame of the car. And then you just, you know, stick this in here and get jacking it up. These tools are kind of weird. The way they rotate, I need to probably just get a new jack, but you just, you know, have to spin this thing up and eventually it'll just start jacking the car up, the whole weight of the car. Okay, one thing I just remembered, before you get too much of the weight of the car jacked up, you want to get your tool to get the lug nuts off, because it's easier to get the lug nuts off when there's some weight on the wheel, rather than, you know, once you jack it up, it'll be up in the air, and then these lug nuts are harder to get off. So you just want to come on these and let's try this. There we go. Just loosen each one. You don't have to twist them completely off, but at least get them nice and loose beforehand. You're going to want to do that on all of them before you jack it all the way up. Okay, as you can see, once you get this thing a little higher off the ground, then it's easy because you can just start jacking it fast like this, round and round. And you'll start hearing some sounds. Don't freak out. It's just the, usually just the tire is, when it's coming off the ground, it just kind of makes some sounds. Okay, now that you have jacked it all the way up, you should be able to see that your wheel can spin a little bit. That means it's off the ground completely. So now, usually with your fingers, you can just start spinning these lug nuts off.
Or if they're still a little too tight, you can use the tool and get them all the way off.
Okay, I was able to spin all those off. Here they are, there are 5 of them. By the way, these are, they all look the same and they're in pretty good shape, but if you have some that are kind of, over the years have gotten messed up, you can buy these for like $2 or $3 at a local auto store.
And also, one time I pulled at a wrong angle on one of these with my tool, and it actually not only pulled the lug nut off, but it broke this piece off. You can buy those too at an auto store, and that's a pretty hard job because you got to go back behind here and replace it. But they're pretty cheap, but it's kind of a lot of work to replace those. So be careful when you're pulling off your lug nuts that your tool is straight out, like it's perpendicular and comes off clean. Okay, so this next part, you're just gonna pull the wheel off. You can just grab it, kind of shake it out. There we go. Got it to come off. And whoops. So what I've realized is it's best to kind of roll, once you get it clear of there, you can just roll this wheel around. One good practice too is I usually just put it here and then I stick it under the car right there, just in case, because if your jack gets kicked out or something, if you're doing a lot of stuff under there and you happen to have your head under there, you don't want the car falling on you, so at least the wheel will be there for the car to land on. Kind of a scary thought, but it's not likely because your jack is probably not going to get kicked out. It'd take a ton of pressure, but if you get the whole car rocking, it's possible, so just safety precaution. Okay, at this point I've put my cool headlamp on. I know I look awesome in this. This is where it gets a little darker in there and you might want to look back in the back, so it's good to have a little more light back there. Okay, so now we're looking at it, and here this thing is called the rotor. If that thing is very like wobbly, like when you brake and your car kind of wobbles, especially the front ones, you can get those for like, I don't know, $60 on eBay for a set, like a pair of them. I've seen deals on there or on Amazon too, where you get all 4 rotors and then 8 brake pads for like $130, $150. So that's actually a pretty decent deal if you just want to replace everything. A lot of the places grind these things down and stuff, but by the time you do all that, it's not worth it. A lot of the places too, if you got all 4 rotors replaced and all 4 or 8 brake pads, you'd be like probably $300 or $400 into it. So it's actually pretty cost effective if you're going to do it, just to do all of them at once. Okay, so and then this here is the caliper, and this is the part that has the brake pads inside. It's got a brake pad on the front and the back, and basically those just squeeze on the rotor, and that's what stops your car. So really all we need to do is pull this out and then put the 2 new brake pads on the front and the back, and then put this caliper back in. Another couple of things I forgot to mention that you might want is you get in here, it gets pretty dirty, so it's good to have just a rag to wipe your hands on or clean the parts on. And then also this is a hanger, like just a metal hanger, and I bent it this way because this comes in handy when you just want to hold that caliper that I just talked about. Sometimes that thing gets in the way, so it's just a good way to get it out of the way. I'll show you that in a bit. Okay, so all you really need to do to get this caliper off is you have to undo this nut here. You can actually do both of them. I've seen people do both, but you really don't need to, because all you do is undo that one and then rotate this thing up, put the new brake pads in and swoop it back down. So I found that's the easiest way. So all you got to do is get your socket set, and then this is a piece. This will probably be different, but in my case it's 14 millimeters for the MDX. So that fits right snugly on there. By the way, almost all the European and Asian cars are gonna be millimeters on the socket sets. You know, they're gonna be all metric system. And of course, the American cars are gonna be standard, like with the inches. And most socket sets have both of them in there. So you just grab onto that and crank that off. Should be pretty easy, but again, if you get into trouble, I'll show you here in a second what tools you can get if you get stuck on where you can't get this thing off.
Okay, these are a couple tools for serious power. If you can't get some of your nuts or bolts off of your car, a lot of times they're rusted. I found the first key is you probably want to squirt some WD-40 on it and try to loosen it up. But if you still can't get it off, then you can use one of these. This is just a socket set thing, but it's super long, and sometimes they call them breaker bars, and they just give you a lot more leverage. There's also these tools that you can basically bang on this with a hammer or a mallet, and it's going to twist this thing left or right, so it just gives it some power. So you can just buy those at a auto store or like Lowe's or Home Depot, or you can buy them online too. Okay, now that I got that screw out, you should be able to just grab this caliper and see you can rotate it right up like that. And then you're going to see there, that's your brake pad, the front and back one. And like and by the way, also here's your cylinder. That's your brake cylinder. That's what's going to be applying the pressure on the brake pads. So what I do here is I get my hanger and I put it through that hole and just hook it on there. And then I just, hook it up here on something up there. Yeah, grab it on like that. So as you can see, it's just holding it up, just kind of keeping it out of my way so I can work down in here. Okay, so now all we have to do is grab these old brake pads. You just pull them out straight out, like they kind of get a little caught up in there, but they're these little metal things that hold them in place. You can see just there the top and the bottom, and you can see this brake pad's fairly worn out. It's not down as far as sometimes it's all the way down to the metal, and that's bad news. But this one's still got a little bit on it, but I usually just replace all 4 of them. It's worth it. Just while you're in there, you might as well just do it all. So we'll do that, and then same thing on the back. In this case, the front and back ones look the exact same. Sometimes the back one has a little metal thing that's sticking off of it, just to warn you when it's wearing down, but in my case, they all look the same. Okay, so here are the new brake pads. They're pretty simple. Again, they look the same. And you just want to make sure when you put it on that you get it the right way. So sometimes they have metal shims on the back. This one does have a metal shim. That's just to keep the sound down and make it harder. And but if it has a metal one, sometimes they have you put grease in there and stuff. These ones are just nothing special, so you just put it in like that. You have to kind of play with this for a second to get it to line up, but there, see, I got that in. So that's all secure, and you just want to push it all the way so it hits the rotor. And then we'll do the same thing on the back. One thing too is sometimes these little metal things fall out. So here I just, that one just fell out, so I'll have to make sure it gets put back in. But if yours falls out, just make sure you get it back in. Okay, now I've got the front and the back brake pads in. One thing is, you notice my hands are getting super dirty, so of course I'm going to wipe them off on my rag. I have seen some other guys with good idea. They get those surgical gloves. If you're going to do a lot of car stuff, it's a good idea to get kind of those rubber protective gloves that keep your hands clean. Okay, so now the next step is we need to get this caliper back down. But the problem is this cylinder here it's not compressed enough, so that if you tried to rotate it back down, because these are thicker than the old brake pads, that caliper won't be able to come down. So basically we need to push and squeeze this in. And the problem is you can't just do that with your hands. And the AutoZone, O'Reilly, local auto parts store, they have these, you can rent for free, these tools that you just put on there, and it has a compressor kind of thing. I haven't really worried about that. I just get a C-clamp like this, and I just put it on there and compress that down. Theirs are a little better because they compress it uniformly. This kind of just puts it on one spot, but it doesn't really matter. It works fine. Okay, you can see here I've got the C-clamp on there, and now I'm just tightening it down. And as you do that, you're going to see that cylinder start to compress down. And you want to compress it pretty much all the way it can go. It'll stop. It'll be pretty obvious when it'll be like kind of flush here with
the other cylinder that it's inside of. And once you do it, I worried at first that it would like pop back like really quickly. It doesn't really do that. You can just, once you compress it out like that, it'll be fine. It won't come back up. So you have time once you do it. You don't feel like you have to hurry. Okay, once you get to the end, as you can see, mine's pretty flush with that other cylinder. So then you have to, go back left a little bit with the C-clamp. Then I'll take this hanger off here. So now the caliper can come down. You might have to wiggle it a little and move it around. Another thing is it often gets stuck on that right there, that piece. You have to push that in, and then it can go down. So that's great. Now you can see that the caliper is back in place where it should be. And so now I just need to do this, and it's kind of tricky here. Sometimes you got to line it up a little with the bolt that goes under there. You're just going to want to do basically the inverse of what you did to take it apart. Okay, you're going to want to tighten that up. Oh yeah, gotta remember when you're backwards like this, it's like to the left, because from my perspective instead of the right. But yeah, you're gonna want to tighten that back on. In my case, I use a wrench because my socket's broken, so it doesn't go to the right, it only goes to the left. It only goes counterclockwise. So you get that pretty nice and snug. And it's fine. Like generally they want you to put about, I don't know, 50 to 70 pounds of torque on stuff. And that basically means what you can tighten with your own hands. I've never really liked to do more than that, with tools and whatnot, because once they rust on there and get dirt and stuff in there, it's super hard to get them off. So generally I don't tighten them like crazy. Okay, and that's all to get the brake pads on. So now all you have to do is put the wheel back on. Same way, just put it on, put those 5 lug nuts on, and then take your jack off of there. And then you're going to want to repeat the same process on all 4 wheels. It's pretty simple. Again, this should take, I don't know, 15 minutes per wheel, so an hour or so to do all 4 wheels is a pretty good brake job. Okay, we're gonna put our wheel on now. Let me grab that. There it is. And again, I like to kind of roll it over there. It makes it easier. And then one trick is you want to make sure the bottom gets all the way scooted up to it where it should go. If that's at an angle, then the lug nuts won't line up with where they're supposed to go. And then you kind of have to lift it and rotate this around until you're gonna see, eventually you'll see some screws in there and you'll be able to push them through the holes. Okay, so I kind of had to lift mine up on, but as you can see, I got those screws poking out of the holes now. And I'm just holding it on with my legs. That's gonna get your legs a little dirty. You don't have to do that, but it kind of helps. Then I try to get some lug nuts on there, even if just a little bit, just to get them started so it holds it on. If you have another person here too, helps, they can hold the wheel while you get these lug nuts started. Okay, then grab your lug nut tool and just start rotating those. Get them kind of tight, but not super tight. You kind of want to do each one a little tight and get all of them somewhat tight, and then go back around and get them tighter and tighter. So, and also you don't really want to go in a circle. You want to go across from each other. It makes it a little better. So see, it kind of rotate around and get different ones. So just to make sure it gets on smoother, like it goes on more flat instead of one side being really tight and the other one super loose. Okay, I've got these all pretty tight on there. They're not as tight as I'm gonna have them, but they're all quite tight. So now I'm gonna go and crank down the jack, because you want to get some weight on the wheel again. That makes it easier to really get the lug nuts tight. So if you have some weight on them, And this, as you crank this down, it should be a lot easier than going up, because of course as you're going left, so now you're going counterclockwise, it's going down, so it's easier because your car wants to go down, not up. So you just crank on that, and you might start to hear some sounds too as it goes down. That's okay, it's just the weight being shifted onto the wheels and the parts in there.
Okay, now that you've got the jack out, you're going to want to tighten these lug nuts one last time. So you just put them on there. You can see mine are cranking down a little, another quarter of a turn or so each. You can just put your weight into it. Make sure each of them is pretty tight. So now you're going to want to repeat that on all 4 wheels, or just the front too if that's all you're doing, but you can just replace the brake pads. I generally, again, like to do it on all 4. And then you just put all your tools away, and again you're going to want to get these parts and put them back in your car. I'll show you how that's done. That just fits like that. And this kind of goes in there. I'll figure it out, but you get the idea. All those parts go in there. Okay, we're done. That's how you replace your brake pads on a MDX or really any car. Thanks for watching, and you're probably going to want to go just kind of pump the brakes a little and test it out before you let your wife loose on it. Just to make sure everything seems right. Generally it should though, but you might have to pump them a little just to get those cylinders to compress well on the brakes. So you've just learned how to replace your brake pads on a MDX or any other real car like that. Thanks again for watching, and good luck, and message me if you have any questions, and subscribe to my channel. Thanks, see ya.